Welcome to the Shamrock Green Room, your favorite podcast highlighting everything about Scotus Central Catholic and Columbus Catholic schools. Each episode, we discuss what it's like to be a Shamrock, whether that is a current student, a teacher, an alum, or supporter. We want to hear your stories on why this is such a special place in education. I'm your host, Jon Brezenski, 1998 graduate, former boys head soccer coach, assistant football coach, and current assistant coach for the girls soccer team. Today, I'm joined by Todd Duren. Todd is a 1985 graduate of Scotus. He has served Scotus in many roles, which we will get into our discussion today. Todd has given countless hours of service to Scotus and is a great example of what being a Shamrock is all about. He is currently the Vice President of Corporate Services at Loop Public Power. Todd, thank you for coming in today.
Hey, John, thanks. Thanks for having me.
And we've known each other for a long time, so definitely looking forward to just kind of having this discussion, just kind of covering your many, many different routes and paths as a Shamrock.
That's kind of cool. Actually, if you remember way back in the day, I think maybe you even did a little internship with me.
I did.
Back in the day, so
yes.
That's good.
Well, before we kind of get into your time here at Scotus, just give us a little background about yourself.
Sure. I grew up in Columbus, of course. I attended St. Bonaventure grade school, and after that, of course, moved over to Scotus and graduated in 1985. After that, went off to college, got an engineering degree from UNL, and moved back to Columbus after I got married to my wife, Lisa Chalaha, also an 85 grad. Went to work for Nebraska Public Power as a design engineer for about 5 years, and then made the jump into manufacturing. Went over to Columbus Hydraulics, actually working for one of our Hall of Famers, actually Lee Haroza was the sales manager at that time, and so started as a sales engineer and then kind of worked my way into to VP of operations, and then also then the general manager. And then in 2018, after about 24 years there, I stepped away and got back into the utility business, went back to work for Nebraska Public Power District for a year in the Sustainable Energy Group. And then about 6 years ago, made the jump over to Loop Power District, where, like you said, I'm the VP of Corporate Services, which really is kind of the people part of Loop, you know, the HR, the marketing, and then also do a lot of the local economic development here for our community and our 4 county communities.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
Well, I just remember you mentioned Columbus Hydraulics. You know, it's obviously one of my great memories of the summer job. Working for you guys, playing some cards. Playing cards on the lunch breaks.
That's
those
right,
were some good times. Yeah. So, well, awesome. Well, obviously the Durens, and you mentioned your wife Lisa Chalaha. I mean, the Durens and Chalahas are staples to Scotus. So, kind of just give us a little background on your family.
Yeah. Thanks. My parents, Jerry and Carol Duren. My dad owned and operated a garbage route here in town for 35 years, and we were very fortunate. They gave us the opportunity to attend Scotus. Me and my 3 siblings. I had 2 older brothers, Doug graduated in 81, Dennis in 80, and my sister Tracy in 88. So we were given that opportunity to come here, and I'm sure it was rough for them for a while, but it was a great opportunity. And then my wife Lisa, like you said, Lisa Chalaha, she was an 85 graduate also. Kind of in a very similar situation. Her parents, Kenny and Carolyn, actually were Scotus graduates, both of them. And she had siblings about the same age as us. So Mike was her older brother who graduated in 79, and then Tim in 81, and then Darren with my sister in the class of 88. So kind of mirror images of each other, and we kind of cool because we used to, when we were in junior high, our parents would ride together in the Duren van and go to kind of our brothers' football and track and basketball games, so it's kind of cool. So, it was really neat. So, and then move on to our kids. We're fortunate there where Lisa and I did have the opportunity to come back to Columbus and send our kids to Scotus. We have Anthony was a 2009 graduate. Morgan was a 2011, and Jared and his wife Elizabeth Preister, also a Scotus graduate. Both of those kids graduated in 2015. So it's quite a tradition there. So my kids really, because of my wife's parents, they're third generation Scotus grads. So it's pretty cool.
Yeah, again, like the Durens, the Chalahas, again, staple names for anybody listening today that knows anything about Scotus. But where in Columbus did you grow up?
Well, I grew up as a young kid right by the old Y. So we spent every day at the YMCA, playing sports, doing whatever. A lot of ping pong. My brothers were like champion ping pong players, but I think I can beat them now. But we just lived 2 blocks south of there, and then about the time when my sister Tracy was going to kindergarten, we moved up north of Columbus High School, up by North Park School, on 30th Street. And that's where we had a bunch of friends. There's some other Scotus graduates. We were really good friends with the Lassicks. Jeff Lassick was in my class, Jenny and Tracy's, and our parents really got to be best friends, and we're still remain best friends. So it's pretty cool.
That's pretty awesome that you're able to maintain a lot of those connections.
Yeah, and with Jeff, he had two older sisters about the same age as my brothers, who went to Columbus High, but then our relationships with our families got so strong, it's like, okay, now the two younger ones graduated from Scotus. So
yeah.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah. So you and Lisa are in the same class. Okay. So how did you guys date in like junior high or high school, or kind of how'd that relationship evolve? Obviously from writing games together in the Duren van to go, like, did you guys, I mean, because when you're younger, it's just kind of like, you're friends, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So how did that develop?
Oh, surely not, John. Actually, we kind of kid back and forth and with people is that we really started dating in 5th grade at Junior Fire Patrol. I think that's the first time we really met. I think her cousin Jackie Weezer introduced us at Junior Fire Patrol. But then we finished our grade school. She was a St. Anthony's gal, and I went to St. Bon's. So, back in those days, you really didn't mingle that much. Junior Fire Patrol was about it. Maybe some baseball in the summer with some of the other guys. But so when we got to 7th grade, what a great opportunity to mingle those three schools, because there just wasn't what there is today.
Yeah.
You didn't play club sports. You didn't know those kids. So we got together, started running around with the same group in junior high. And, I like to kid. We always kid this one too, is in junior high up on the 3rd floor, you had lockers that were, too high. So you had one on top and one on bottom. And just so happens that they put us, Todd Duren, her locker was right above me, and I'm down below her. And we always kid about the day when she dropped her lock on my head, but I think she was just flirting with me. But
she made the first move.
Yeah, so I think she did. So, so we've got to be great friends, and we ended up, running with the same group. And then, about the time we started to figure out, what that was like to maybe date, probably in later or midway through our freshman year, we kind of started to think about that. And actually, kind of a strange story too. We ended up going to all but our freshman homecoming dances, date dances together through our proms and homecomings and all that. So, it's been a long story. We had our ups and downs, but we're still together. We'll be celebrating, getting close to 35 years. So It's been great.
That's incredible, and that really does it's very similar to Christy and I too, because we were in the same class, and then, but you made a good point though. Like club sports today is just a lot different.
Yeah.
So and even Scotus has the Rocks programs for different things. So a lot of those kids get an opportunity at the different Catholic grade schools to come together more often. We didn't really have that. Like even we didn't have that. Like when my era. So it is a lot different, which I think is good too, because now those kids come in at 7th grade and they already know each other. That can be good and bad, but I think for the most part that's a good situation.
Yeah, when we came in, you had no idea, hardly knew those other kids at all. So it was a great opportunity to mix, and really, I felt like, you're now at that age, junior high age, you can really develop some strong relationships and really figure out who you're going to run with. So it turned out great. We have a great class of guys and gals who get along really well, so it's been great.
And your 85 class is still pretty strong, because you guys have pretty good showings at like your reunions and those kind of things.
Yeah, and actually we're planning our 40 year this year, so we'll see how that goes.
So what brought you and Lisa back to Columbus then?
Well, when we were both in school in Lincoln, going to college, and Lisa had graduated and got a full-time job, and so we found out it was going to be cheaper to be married. So we got married when I was in school. She was working full-time, so I had a whole nother year of college before we could move on and graduate. So just so happened, I got an engineering degree, a civil engineering degree with a structural kind of focus, and had opportunities to go places. Actually, really good opportunity to stay in Lincoln because some intern stuff that I was doing there. But the opportunity came at Nebraska Public Power. And we had always kind of had in our mind, as you're growing up, you start talking about where you want to live, and and what you want to do, and you know, you're gonna have kids, or what are you gonna do? And you know, kind of one of our goals, and probably one of the biggest reasons we moved back, is because we wanted our kids to have the opportunity to go to Scotus.
Okay.
You know, we had a great experience. We felt like it gave us the education and the faith-based, and just really wanted to have that opportunity for our kids. And so we were very, very fortunate to do that. And of course, our parents lived here. You know, at that time, Lisa had a couple siblings that lived here, but none of mine did. But it was, you know, and you don't really think about that then, but you know, as you grow older and your parents get older and go through their stages, it's just so nice to have your kids around your parents, or be here when they need you.
Yeah, and that's a blessing too. Again, Christy and I feel that too, because the kids can just get on their bikes and go see grandma and grandpa, or you know, grandma and grandpa at the kids' games. That's a big deal. It's a huge deal.
Yeah.
So you guys moved back in 1990?
1990. Yep.
And then you mentioned your three kids. Kind of touch on them, you know, Anthony and Morgan and Jared.
Sure. Anthony is they all live in the Omaha area. Anthony is working for Open Doors, which is kind of the NIL money group. So, and he lives in Omaha and working there, works mostly remotely, but goes to Lincoln often too. But, and then Morgan is a physical therapist, and she's at Ortho, Nebraska now in Omaha. She spent a few years down in Arizona. We got to the point where, hey, it's pretty important to be around our family. So, moved back during COVID. It was just a little bit of a struggle there, but she moved back and lived with us for 15 weeks because the job wasn't there at that time, but ended up getting the job and moving on. So she's doing really great too. So, and then Jared married his high school sweetheart, Elizabeth Preister, who they graduated from high school together, and they live in Elkhorn. And Jared is a structural civil engineer. He works for Kiewit Construction Company, and Elizabeth's in the speech pathology, and she works in the Elkhorn School District. So
okay, so all real close together.
They're all close. They're all 15-20 minutes from each other, and we know where we're going. Yeah. And you know, people ask us, "Are you going to move to Omaha?" I'm like, "Yeah, probably not." Yeah. We love it here. Our friends are here. You know, our faith's here, so that's great.
Well, that kind of leads me into Duren Nation. If anybody's gone down to Nebraska football games and gone tailgating or anything, you see this flag at Duren Nation. Tell me about Duren Nation.
Yeah, Duren Nation's been a Husker football tailgate party for, it's over 40 years. I mean, I went there when I was in college. I used to ride my bike over there, and fortunately my mom would be there. Maybe she'd sneak me a $20 bill or something to buy gas or whatever. But my dad and his two brothers, Dave and John, who have since passed away, and my dad, who's still around and still going, developed this tailgate party. It's in the same spot, right west of the stadium, underneath the viaduct. And all my cousins and siblings and friends, you know, every home football game we're there. Just celebrating football, talking about sports, you know, and I remember in the old days, you know, when I was shortly out of high school, maybe in college, a lot of the Scotus coaches might show up for the football game. You know, I think coaches used to get tickets to the games, and quite often the Pitts brothers and Vern and maybe Randy Berlin or whoever would show up, which was that was always cool to see them, you know.
Well, like I said, if anybody's gone to a game, you see the flag, you see pictures. So that's pretty neat.
If you see it, you should stop by. Yeah, it's a great tradition.
Yeah.
It's just a great time to get together with now it's our cousins. You know, it used to be our parents and our uncles, and so now it's mostly cousins and friends. But
now you guys are kind of in charge of it?
Yeah, well, kind of.
Yeah.
I'm pretty fortunate. I don't have to do a lot of the work because I take my dad from Columbus. But,
there you go.
Yeah, some of the guys have to do a lot of work.
Well, that's a really cool family tradition that's able to continue on down there, and obviously with so many Husker games, that's just a great way to stay connected with not only your family but also alumni as well. So that's pretty cool.
Exactly.
Well, it's kind of tell me, what do you remember? And we'll kind of start going back through some years here. What do you remember just kind of about those early junior high years at Scotus?
You know, in junior high, like I said, you know, it's kind of your opportunity to mingle with some new friends and really just kind of find yourself. You know, I mean, we grew up at the Y, grew up playing sports, but it was always, you know, baseball and you know, you played maybe some midget football or pee-wee football, whatever you want to call it, and basketball, you know, at the Y a lot. But here's your opportunity to kind of learn how to be a real teammate, how to you know, play for Scotus, how to play other teams. I always thought that was kind of cool because, you know, the coaches they bred that in you from the get-go. I mean, I remember playing Aquinas in everything, and actually, and then I think in junior high, track was a big thing. Not saying, I have the Duren speed, I like to say, but, it was a big thing. It was really your time to mingle with other schools, other kids. I'll never forget, we used to practice track across the track south where the old football field is, and the smell of those weeds doesn't go away.
No,
we
I
still
agree.
talk about that. But junior high is just a great time to kind of get a feel for, what the rest of your high school career is going to look like. So
That old practice field, which is, down the viaducts over it now, obviously.
Right,
But
right.
Our current practice field, did you guys, when you guys had to go to that old practice field, did you guys have to run to there?
Well, yeah.
Yeah.
You had to walk or run,
walk /
however
run.
to get through there. And then if it was wet in the park, who knows what was going to happen. But I was pretty fortunate because I played quarterback. So the quarterbacks and sometimes the centers got a ride in the back of Jim Pence's pickup over there, so we could get over and warm up our
Start
arms.
warming up, yeah.
We never really threw the ball in the games, but at least we warmed up our arms for practice.
I know even when I was playing, we had a bus by then. But I just remember in junior high, because the high school practice field was on the east end of that facility,
Yeah,
and
right.
when I was in junior high, it was on the west
Yeah.
end. The trees separated. Was that still
It
was
was
that the
that
case
way.
for you guys too?
Yeah. And here's the kind of crazy thing, just kind of shows you how old I am. But I think when I was a junior, was the first year that we actually got water out there. There was we made this trough thing
yeah.
with these water fountains. Before that, you used to have to take coolers of water, and you just put the cups in it and drank out of that. And the linemen got in there first. Their hands were all dirty, and so that's how old it was when water became important at that time. I think so.
I just remember having to run to the practice field. So you leave south of Scotus, which you basically run to where the practice field is now, and then hang a left, and then you're basically on a straight stretch to the railroad tracks to get over.
Yeah, and that's where we practiced track as junior high. You practice
Oh, really?
there. They kind of set up some cones, and you ran in that. I don't know how we didn't sprain our ankles, but that's where we practiced. We didn't really go to the track maybe once every couple weeks, really is all.
What kind of activities were you involved in high school then?
Well, in high school, I did kind of all the stuff that you normally would do. Of course, the sports was a big part of it. I was a class officer for most of those years. FBLA, National Honor Society, S Club, kind of the gamut. Standard ones. Fortunately, well, I don't know if it's fortunate, but being a class officer, I was always just, vice president or secretary or whatever. Well, I don't think I understood, because then as a senior, I ended up being the class president. Well, guess what? Class president gets to plan the class reunion. So that's what we're in the middle of. Like I said, we're doing our 40-year class reunion this year. So.
Well, I'm not even a class officer, and I still have to plan
Well,
ours because I'm a local guy.
Yeah, that helps too. I usually get Lisa to help too. So, but it's fun too.
Yeah,
it's just great to be able to keep in contact with people.
Like I said, your class has pretty good attendance at most of those things,
Yeah,
which is good for your organization.
Yeah, we do. So there's a lot of helpers.
Yeah. Well, let's transition into maybe some of those teachers and coaches that you feel like had a pretty good impact on you. Let's just kind of start with the teachers. And you mentioned a lot of the teachers in the math department.
Sure.
When you kind of sent me some things back. So let's kind of touch on those guys.
Yeah, I think I found out in junior high that math maybe was a strength of mine, and I think a lot of it could be attributed to some great math teachers. All the way from junior high all the way through high school. I mean, you think about Mabel Picaric and the staple that she was in the junior high. Getting people off onto the right track and getting them thinking like that. In grade school you do some math problems, but it's nothing like that. And then we always had a great math department. John Peterson, Randy Berlin, those guys were just excellent teachers. I think of John Peterson, and at that time he was teaching the advanced math in high school, and stuff that we never even thought about. But when I think that's what got me excited and got me interested in becoming an engineer. Other than that, I had a brother Dennis, who actually was a civil engineer too. It kind of led me that way. But the strength of those education that we were getting in that department was huge, and just you just can't even think about how awesome that was.
Yeah.
Some other people I think about Nancy Shadle. Kind of going completely the other direction. She was the art teacher, and I think, she taught you a lot about being social and being creative and things like that, and I think that all kind of plays into that. And then I think this is kind of a funny story, but I think Gary Pitts was a great teacher, and young people won't even know what I'm talking about, but in junior high, one of the most important things they taught you was Nebraska history, right? And Coach Pitts taught it, and one of the things he showed us was how to actually fold up a map, right? You see these maps in everybody's car, they were just all thrown around. Well, he showed you how to do it, and you used it a lot back then.
Yeah.
I don't think anybody using a map anymore. Not
Google Maps.
Google Maps. You don't have to fold those. But
when Chrissy and I were first married and traveling, we still had the old school maps,
yeah.
Atlas, kept them in your car, finding room in your car for those things.
Yeah, when I first started working at Columbus Hydraulics in '95, cell phones were just kind of getting in there, but and I traveled a lot all the way across the United States, and you go out to California, and you have no idea where you're going. You got to read a map or an atlas or whatever, and then you don't now you can just Google where every business is. Well, you have to pull over to a payphone and call them and say, "Here's where I am. How do I get there?" So it's a changing world, but it's awesome.
It's funny that you mentioned the maps with Gary there, but we were in Tampa here in January, and I actually thought back to, I was like, man, how the hell are we gonna be able to drive? Like, how would we drive back then without, now you plug in your phone, Google Maps pops up, CarPlay comes up, and now just if there's a construction ahead, it reroutes you automatically. Could you imagine doing that now?
It was crazy. I mean, it was fun, but everything took so long because you had no idea, how to get places.
Yeah.
The internet was kind of just getting started, and it was an adventure every time. Good thing I went with Lee Haroza because he usually knew where to go.
He was pretty organized.
He would usually find the sports bar so we could watch some sports.
Watch some games.
Yeah, and grab some nachos or something.
Well, let's transition kind of now into your sports career. So, talk about some of the coaches now that kind of had some influence on you in your athletic career.
Yeah, I played the basic sports in high school. Was a 3-sport athlete, basically playing football, basketball, and track. And a lot of those coaches overlapped, especially in the football and track. You had Jim and Gary Pitts, and you had Vern Younger, and then at that time, Randy Berlin was kind of the quarterback's coach, which I spent a lot of my time with because that's just who you spend your time with. But great coaches, what motivators and what, they really taught us a lot about being a team and, what your role is. I was never a great athlete, but I had a role, and that's just the way it worked, and they taught you how important that role was. And I think, especially looking at track, they really treated track as a total team sport. We were dominant in track in the 70s and 80s because we were a team.
So much depth.
So much depth. Yeah. So much depth. And that depth, way down at the bottom of the depth, that's where I was. But it's just one of those things. But those guys were motivators. They were great role models. They were always there. They were always there. You went to the other games or you went to the girls' games, and they were always there. So they were staples at Scotus and remain that still today.
Yeah. Yeah. So you play football. We'll get into basketball here in a little bit, but so you play football. You're a member of the '84 state championship team, but you also talk about you mentioned to me the '83 season. So and then also everybody kind of knows you as the state championship quarterback, really. No. But you played center before that. So that's kind of an interesting switch.
Yeah, it is kind of interesting. So let's start there, how it all started. But yeah, when I was in junior high, I played center. We had some great athletes at that time. Jeff Lassick and Jeff Pedraza kind of were the quarterback roles. Those guys were way faster. They were way bigger. And so they were, in that role and through junior high. So I played center. And, I was a catcher in baseball. So I'm like, I want to be involved, So if you're the center, you're still involved in every play, right? Yep. So played center. Once in a while, I kind of, maybe in 8th grade, freshman probably maybe played a little bit of quarterback, maybe 3rd string or whatever, played a little bit in the 5th quarter or whatever we used to do. And then as a sophomore, getting ready to go to summer football and get ready for the season. And I'm like, I really don't know where I'm going. I really don't. I'm thinking I'm probably going to be a wing back or something, hopefully have an opportunity to play some JV and see what happens. Well, I get to the parents' meeting and I get my folder and it's got number 16 on it. Well, 16 is a pretty special number in our family. So my brother Doug played quarterback for in 1981 with his 81 team, and they were a throwing team back then. Had some great athletes that he played with, like Brett Kampf and Glenn Kuchar and Ron Starzyk and those guys. But so I kind of had a little bit of that. And so then I went right into sophomore football, and now I'm a quarterback, right? So,
really?
So I think it was probably more about maybe my potential as a leader than really a great athlete.
Yeah.
And so, it worked out great for me and for our teams, right? So as a sophomore, I started on the JV team and got to play a lot of fun games and kind of learned what that role is like. And then as a junior and senior, I did start at quarterback for those 2 years. I remember my first year as a junior, I probably weighed 140 pounds, and the first game's against Pius, right? At Pius. Man, I think I probably threw up in the locker room. I don't know. I was
so nervous.
But, the coaches put you in good positions. Yeah. Jim was a good play caller. It puts you in the position to do what you can do. We had some great players on that team. We had a great running back when I was a junior. His name was Todd Duren. And the guy would run the ball, 30, 40 times a game. He was a big kid, fastest guy on the team, just a really great athlete. And that year, as juniors, we just missed the playoffs. I think we were 6-3 at the end of the year, and we were playing Creed, I believe it was the last game of the year. And it really can boil down to not the last game, but one play, really, to tell you the truth. I think we might have been slightly ahead, and we were running a sweep, and we had two sweep plays. One, the quarterback ran it back and gave it to the running back. The other one, you pitched it, and I don't know what happened, but I pitched it, and he thought I was going to hand it off, and we fumbled, and they got the ball, scored a touchdown, and beat us, and we ended up being 6-3 and not making the playoffs. So. That was
back then, probably 16 teams made playoffs back then.
Let's see, probably 16 because you played 4 games to get to the finals. So I think that'd be 16.
Yeah, right on.
Yeah,
there was a lot of teams in that era and that time frame that were similar records, but it was tough to make the playoffs.
It was tough to make. It was a big deal. If you made the playoffs, it was a big deal.
Yeah. So the '83 season ends kind of how you just talked about, but then the '84 season comes around and you have 18 seniors in your group. You're one of the captains with Steve Bonk and Jeff Pedraza. So, three pretty good leaders. Just kind of let's talk about that season. Obviously, it ends the way you want it to end.
Yeah, it was a great season, and it really all started after that football game. We had a big group, 18 seniors. A couple of those guys probably weren't going to play. But that summer, a bunch of us worked together, for a guy putting in some sub pumps in their basements and stuff. And we're like, dude, you got to go out because I think we're going to have a really good team. So we got a couple extra guys to go out, and some of them were contributors. They were contributors. They all were, actually. So we really started to dedicate ourselves going into the summer, working hard in the weight room, and then we come out that year and really have a great season. I mean, we go 13-0. We had just an amazing line and an amazing defense. At 13-0, we had 7 shutouts at that time. Was a school record. I'm not sure if that still is
a school record.
Yeah, and we outscored our opponents like 330-50. So we scored a lot of points. Just had some great athletes on our team and a great line. It was a lot of fun.
Yeah.
It was a lot of fun, and we played 4 games in the playoffs. Back then, you played them, at home or on the road. Mm-hmm. You didn't get the great privilege of playing in Memorial Stadium in Lincoln, but for us, maybe it was good.
Yeah. Well, I was going to go through some. So you get Creed in the regular season that year, and you beat them 42-3. So you get a little bit of little sweetness, revenge on them. And then looking at the score sheet that year, you really in the regular season, you guys dominated. You did have a close game with Boys Town, 15-14.
Yeah.
And then you beat Aquinas in overtime, 6-0. So kind of touch on those, maybe those 2 close games.
Those games were both really, really close. We played Boys Town at Boys Town. It was a battle back and forth. It was still 15 to 14.
Yeah.
It's a lot of defense playing in there, and I can't remember how we got to 15. I don't know if we went for 2. I can't even remember that. But then I think it was like 2 weeks later we played Aquinas in Columbus, and it's a defensive battle. It's 0-0 I think going into overtime. And back then overtime, it was a little bit different too. Can't remember exactly.
The 10-yard line.
Yeah, I think it was the 10-yard line. Anyway, so we hold them, and they're going to kick a field goal. They're going to kick a field goal probably to win the game, and he misses it. We're like, yes. Well, then we get the ball back and score a touchdown and win the game. And it was a big deal anytime you beat Aquinas. It's
Sure.
a big deal, and so that was like, oh man, we gotta refocus here because it was just.
And that was a game before the playoffs.
It came right before the playoffs.
Yeah, yeah. And so you go into the playoffs. And again, these are in 4 really tight games, which they should be in the playoffs, right? I mean, you beat Wood River in the first round, 12-0. You get Aurora in the next round, 19-11. Roncalli, 14-13 in the semifinals, and in the Gothenburg game, 10-6. So 4 really close games against each team had kind of a standout player, right?
Oh, absolutely. It was kind of fun because we kind of keyed on those players, when it got time to practice that week. And we're very fortunate because 3 out of those 4 games were at home. The first game against Wood River, they had a guy named Sam Schmidt who went on to play fullback for Nebraska, and we kind of had the slogan at practice was to slam Sam, right? Because he was a key player, and he was big. I mean, he was probably in that 220, and he could run.
Big guy.
He was a big guy playing running back.
And 220 back then as a running back, that's like what linemen were.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. We had linemen that were 160 pounds when
Yeah.
I played. A couple of guys were 160, 170 pounds. So
Wow.
he was a big dude. And then we went to Aurora and played on the road our second game, beating them 19-10. And that was a really close game too. In fact, I think they were ahead at half, and the game went on anyway. But I remember we had to we were down. It was 4th down, and we ended up throwing a pass to complete the pass to keep the drive alive, and we scored a touchdown and won. We had a running back. We had a couple of guys in our backfield. Jeff Pedraza, who's one of our Hall of Famers here. He played fullback, and Keith Neal. These guys were just tough as nails, and we get down on that goal line, they're going to score one way or the other. We ran a lot of power I offense back then, so 3 running backs, a lot of kind of cross bucks and fakes and things. But those guys, they were awesome football players, along with the linemen. But and then we come back home. We're going to play. Oh, actually, the Aurora guy was Tom Haas. Who actually played quarterback in Nebraska too.
As well.
Yeah. So I can't remember if we had a slogan for him. There was probably somebody else, but and then we came home and we played Roncalli. And interesting story, Omaha Roncalli, right? So we were running out onto the field to get ready for the game, and their fans are sitting on the other side of the field, and there was a big sign there, and it said, Omaha Roncalli, sink the discoverers. They didn't even know who we were, so we needed to get some respect. So
I remember listening to when Gary's podcast. Gary mentioned that.
Did he
game
really?
Too. Yeah, and he said the same thing. He goes, "Yeah, they didn't need any more motivation after seeing that sign." But it was still a close game.
Yeah, it was a very close game. Yeah, and that was 14-13, and they had a guy named Phil Higgins who also went on to play at Nebraska, and it was Drill Phil for that week. So just a lot of fun.
Yeah,
and
things you remember.
Yeah, things you remember. And when you get to that point, to the playoffs, and you're getting deeper into the playoffs, it's more about game plan. It's more about going through the motions. It's not a lot about hitting and still learning the game. You just got to get out there and be ready to play and prepare yourself. Yeah. Right. Yeah. So that was a big win. We won by a point. That was pretty awesome. And then we went on to play Gothenburg. Home game again. Huge. Our crowd was amazing. I was still meeting people that were there like, I was there. And I was like, well, I didn't even know who you were, right?
And that game's up on YouTube for anybody that wants to go watch it. It is really, and Jim kind of, in the video that's up there of the game is Jim kind of talking about some things too, which is pretty cool.
Yeah, you can go out there and see it. Actually, it was the TV or the radio station at the time did this kind of pigskin preview. And they did a couple other games, but that's the only one I can find. But so Jim Pitts, and then there was 2 of the athletes, Jeff Pedraza and Keith Neal, the guys I mentioned before, and they're so darn nervous. They're like, I don't know, But you can see the whole game. It ended up being a great game, and they had probably I think probably one of the best football players in the state that year. His name was Bump Novacek. And that is his name, Bump. He had a brother, Jay, who played for the Dallas Cowboys. Bump was like, I don't remember how high he was. Held the state record in pole vault.
Yep.
Had a scholarship to play football in Nebraska. I think he went on to Fresno State or somewhere to do track. And just an amazing athlete. And he was a big dude, too. He was like 6'4", probably weighed in that 200-pound range. And I even think about when we played him, on offense, the year before he had played quarterback. Then they moved him to I-back for his senior year. And in the game, we kind of got ahead, and I think he played 5 offensive positions, from tight end to receiver to they moved him to quarterback for the fourth quarter, running back. He just, he could do it all. He's one of those guys that could do it all. And so it was a really close game there, too. Got down to the wire. We went ahead 10-6. They're driving the ball down the field. It looks like, oh man, this is coming down the wire, and I'm on the sidelines, right, dude? Because I don't play any defense. I was only an offensive player as a senior, and so I'm biting my fingernails or whatever. But anyway, they ended up throwing a flea flicker, a hitch and pitch. They did a hitch and pitch, and goes almost. It looks like he's gone, and somehow Keith Neal runs the guy down and gets. I think it was Novacek actually on that too. And then it gets to be like third down, and they're probably maybe on a 30-yard line or something, and throw a pass, and we intercept it for the win. Rick Bogus, another local, lives here in Columbus, intercepted the pass, and the celebration started. So yeah, it was a great season. It really molded us together as a team and with our parents, and it was just. It's a once-in-a-lifetime experience, so it was awesome.
And it's so interesting. I mean, it's fun to watch you tell the stories because you can tell the images are so clear in your head.
Yeah.
We all have those images as athletes, and you can, just watching you go through that right now, you can just totally tell. You can replaying the game.
Yeah, it's pretty cool to think back, or sit down and visit with your buddies and just talk about it. And it's I'm no Vern Younger. I can't remember everybody's 40 time like he can, but. I can still think in my mind I probably could name every guy on my team what their football number was. It's just one of those things that you go through. So it's cool.
What was it like to play for Jim? Especially as you're a quarterback. Obviously, you have a huge role on the team. You mentioned you didn't play defense. So you're, during the defensive when we're on defense, you're probably out there or on the sidelines talking with Jim.
Yeah,
so you got to have a special relationship with him, really.
Yeah, I actually did. Jim was I think I said it before, but what a motivator. I mean. The guy knew the game of football, don't get me wrong, but he was a motivator, and he could get the most out of players. And yeah, like you said, when our team was on defense, it was probably going to be quick. It's probably 3 and out, because our defense was so good. But we'd be talking about what are we going to do when we get back in there? What's going to work? And it's a game you play, and it's a relationship you have with the coach. And he would be so excited. You know what I mean? He'd just be like, oh, we got to do this, or we got to do this. And I was like, Coach, maybe we should run that crossbuck again, or whatever, and I can, and plays would come into the huddle, and sometimes I was like, what is that?
Yeah.
We don't even have a play like that, or whatever. So as a senior, I probably called maybe, 25, 30% of the plays just right in the huddle because you had the feel for it. But Jim, I can just remember, I don't even know who we were playing, but one of our big plays was like a 55 ISO, right? Yeah. So you hand it to the I-back through the 5-hole, whatever, and it was working. We ran it a couple times, and I go to the sidelines either for a timeout. He goes, run that 55 ISO again, but run it to the other side. I was like, Coach, would that be a 56 ISO? Yeah, I think that's what it would be. So.
I could totally see him doing that because when I was playing, we were running in plays, and Vern was the guy that was, Jim. It'd be Jim, then it'd be Vern. And then it'd be the player, then it'd be Vern. Yeah. Because they had headsets.
Yep.
And then Rick Grubo was our offensive coordinator. I just remember this would come down a lot. We'd call play. Vern would tell Jim, no,
not doing
56. But I think Jim was just a rhythm guy. It's like, if it's working,
just keep doing it.
Make them stop you.
And then we like I said, we had a great offensive line too. You got guys like. On our line was Todd Duren. The guy was 5'8" and probably weighed about 230, but could run like crazy. And Steve Bonk, Probably as good a football player as I played with on our team when you think about a linebacker type guys. Bobby Klebnowski was our center. And actually, Todd Peterson was the other guard. And actually, as I think after the first game or second game, somebody got hurt, and then Pat Engelbert was a sophomore, stepped in and played tackle on our offensive line too. So had some great players right there. And and I think between Gary and Jim, and probably Gary more on the defensive side, he had a way of doing things where you kind of had some of the guys that played on the defensive line, but you rotated so much, kept guys fresh. So you had a lot of guys that got to play on defense.
They were always good about doing that, I thought.
And when we were kids, John, I know I'm still quite a bit older than you, but when we were playing, if you put the time in, and when you got to be a junior, probably a senior, you were going to play.
Yeah.
You were going to play somewhere.
They were good about finding spots for every player.
They'd find a spot for you to get in there and play and contribute. So we had a couple twins on our team, Doug and Don Brackenoff. Kind of crazy there. One played defensive end, the other one played offensive tight end. So,
oh really?
Both big, tall kids really were key contributors there too.
And I think that's what you as a quarterback, and just being an alumni, that's what, and you alluded to it too. You have good leadership skills. I mean, I think that's what made you special as a quarterback, and I think that you've carried that in your professional life too, and all these things that we'll touch on here in a little bit. But those are leadership qualities that you have.
Well, thanks, John. I think that's probably why I played. I mean, I was just an average athlete, and but somebody had to tell those guys what to do. Somebody had to keep them under control, and I still have to do that.
Yeah. Well, let's transition into basketball a little bit. So your coach in your high school career is Frank Spinseri. Kind of talk about Coach Spinseri.
Yeah, Coach Frank Spinseri is just a wonderful human being. I got so much respect for him. He was tough. He was tough, and he taught us a ton about the game of basketball and really about life. Just a great man. I mean, he got everything he could get out of you. I think about and how he could go from that that kind of aggressive, intense basketball coach, and then you'd see him on the other side as the AD or as a teacher, and he was kind of a totally different person, But boy, you get on that court, and he was getting the most out of you. And I think about, I grew up with, his daughter Lisa was in our class. Probably my wife Lisa and myself, probably our best friend. Okay. In fact, both of us were in her wedding.
Oh, really?
Yeah. I didn't wear a dress, I promise. I was a groomsman, but we were both in her wedding. So we've had a great relationship with the family, and Scott's a good friend of mine too. But, Frank was he was very intense. I was a 2-year starter most of the time. Not a great basketball player and never scored. I think it probably scored 8 points, probably my high, but it was my job to do other things.
Yeah.
So kind of
get leadership role.
Yeah.
Any good fun stories on Coach?
I got a couple of them.
Yeah.
One of them's kind of funny. One of them is just kind of really cool. So after games, we'd go not after the game, but during the week we'd go over to his house to watch the game film, so that he could kind of tell us what we were doing good and bad. And his wife Pat was just a wonderful person. She took care of us. We'd show up. She'd have a big Italian meals, spaghetti or whatever, and then she'd make popcorn, and everything was fun and games, And then we go downstairs and turn on the game, and that usually didn't go very good because our team we're coming off a state championship football team. We think we're pretty cool, So we were playing basketball. We win our first 4 games, right? And we're playing at York, and they just stomp us. And it's like, oh man, we're not near as good as we think we are. But anyway, we'd be watching these films, and he'd get so into the game and so intense and so fired up. Sometimes he'd say, why don't you guys just go home?
Yeah.
He just couldn't take it anymore. But we weren't even a 500 season that year. I think I had a bet with Dave Steiner back then. I was working for my dad, and I was like, yeah, we're gonna be really good. Yeah, we weren't that good.
No.
But we had a great time. We had a great fun time. But that's really kind of a serious thing there. But one of the stories, and I'll tell it in 2 weeks when we have our alumni basketball. I tell it every year, and I've told Coach Spinseri this over and over too. So we had the twins, right? So Doug and Don. pretty good basketball players, actually, pretty good scorers, still playing our alumni here and there. And we're running an out-of-bounds practice, out-of-bounds play, and one of the twins is taking the ball out, and we run the play, and he doesn't throw the ball in. He's still holding it, and coach looks at him and he says, Doug, throw the ball in. Sorry. He says, throw it in. Run it again. So we run it again, and same thing, and the guy makes the move, and he gets open, and he doesn't throw it again. It's like, Doug, throw the ball in. And he looks at coach and he goes, Coach, I'm Don, not Doug. and even Coach Matsuri laughs so hard, he's like, I can't even take that. I'm not mad anymore. He goes. Yeah. So, it was... it's a
lighter side of him.
Yeah. I mean, it was great to play for Frank. And, he still comes back for alumni here and there. And in fact, I just talked to him to get a little history yesterday. And he's just a great man. And just, it's crazy because, when you're in high school, sometimes you think, gosh, I don't know, but after you get out of high school, you really understand and appreciate what they do and how they do it and what they get out of you as a student athlete is pretty amazing.
And I think everybody kind of knows him as a really intense guy, but I got to know him just through coaching, grandkids and stuff.
Yeah.
And so I talked to him after some games sometimes, and Tanner was involved in our 3 soccer championships, and coach was there, and so it was kind of fun to talk to him in that role because he's like the softer, the really sincere side of it.
Right.
And he does have a big heart.
He has a huge heart.
Yeah.
He does.
Yeah. Well, okay, so let's talk about just now we'll transition here now to some of these roles that you've had. You've had a lot of different roles at Scotus. A lot. I mean, there's a lot there, but I think it's really important that we, touch on some of these. So just kind of as an alum now you're back in town, you've served Scotus on a lot of different roles. Kind of touch on some of those.
Sure, yeah. As you come back, and like I had indicated, we, one of the big reasons coming back, not only our parents, but and our families, but was Scotus. Mm-hmm. It was exciting to think about having kids and giving them the opportunity that Lisa and I got, and so we got involved, pretty early. I spent 12 years on the school board. Was the president of the school board at one time for a year, I guess is how that works. Mm-hmm. I've been involved with the Shamrock Club, from the minute I moved back. We started going to the stake feeds. I went with my dad, and still go today, mm-hmm. whenever I can. And, that was huge. Playing the golf tournaments, playing the alumni basketball, get involved wherever we can. Mm-hmm. But also, Lisa and I co-chaired the gala. Did the co-chair and then chaired it. And that was in 2006. Okay. And then I've spent quite a bit of time with the Grand Auction Committee for the gala, and so been involved with that quite a bit. And then in 2017, we were fortunate where the school recognized Lisa and I as Alumni of the Year, and that was
that's a big deal.
It was pretty cool. It was. Our kids were there, and they were out of school, mm-hmm. And it just shows your kids how important it is and how much you care for the institution and giving back. It's time to give back, right? The school gave us a ton of opportunities and training and just developed us into great Catholics, mm-hmm. And also into great people and successful in our careers. Yeah. So
I think that's a pretty neat award to kind of come full circle as a elementary student, high school graduate. Yeah, and get named that alumnus. That's a big deal.
Yeah, it was a big deal, and it was really special to be able to share that with my wife, and just know that she's done a lot of stuff too. Yeah. We're very involved, and she taught in the Catholic school system for 25 years, and mm-hmm. It's just our chance to give back, and it's pretty cool. So, and currently I'm on the endowment board.
What does that do?
Basically manages our funds.
Okay.
We meet 3 or 4 times a year and just help manage the funds. Work with the development office, talking about scholarships and things like that. So, yeah, it's kind of a neat role.
Kind of a behind-the-scenes role, which is pretty important.
Yeah, it is. It's totally behind the scenes. So,
well, and then, so a big event's coming up. We've kind of touched on it a couple times here. The alumni basketball tournament's coming up. Our yearly annual event. This year's the 42nd year. You lead the committee. I'm on the committee. But just kind of take us through the history of how the alumni basketball tournament developed into what it is today.
Yeah, like you said, it's the 42nd year, so basically what that means is it started in 1984. Mm-hmm. after the '83 season, I guess it would have been. Guys like Scott Spenceri, Mark Brezenski were seniors that year. And Coach Spenceri, Frank, he and I guess Al Nabalski, Vern Younger, and Tweet Plotzik, kind of came up with this idea. Hey, let's get these alumni back. You know, basketball is a tradition here. We've read a lot of this into our kids. It's a spirit, it's a pride thing. So I talked to Al yesterday, and he said, you know, when we decided to do this, we were just hoping we'd get some alumni back. And he indicated there was 28 teams. Now, I don't know if there was 28 teams, but a lot of kids came back. They had like some really older guys. They had a booster team. So they did a lot of things to get that going. And, you know, then it kind of evolved through the years with a lot of help from alumni. You know, the athletic director, Gary Pitts, played a key part in that, kind of getting it going, taking it to the next level. But, you know, we've had anywhere from probably 250, 260 players and 28 teams to, you know, today it's probably about 175 players, probably in that range of 20 teams, something like that. We have 3 divisions. So you can still play when you're old like me.
Yeah.
You know, it's a lot of fun. It's really just to get people back. But there's been so many key individuals involved with this committee and this organization and this event. You know, guys like Bill Cush and Scott Spenceri and Brett Kampf and you know, and then in the early, probably mid '90s, then Mike Chalaha and I kind of took the lead on the program and took that on, you know, for about 10 or 15 years, and then I kind of assumed the lead, I guess, and since Mike has passed away, kind of just keeping that ball rolling, and kind of in his honor. It's kind of a big honor for his, but it's just a great event. You know, I think it's great because it's our opportunity to get kids back. You know, I don't care how old you are, you're back here to see your buddies, to visit with alumni, but it's competitive.
It is.
You've played. It's competitive.
Yeah, it is.
You know, knock on wood, we've had some injuries, but nothing major. But it's competitive. You know, with those 3 divisions, especially in that A division. You know, you got all ages playing. You know, but it's competitive and it's a great time. But I really think what really makes it special, really makes it successful, is, and I talked to John Sheath and to Aaron about this too, is it's not a fundraiser.
Yeah.
It's not a fundraiser. We want to get as many alumni, as many players back so they're excited about Scotus, so that when they are called upon by the development office or needing funds or looking for scholarships, hey, you're ready to step up because you have that pride, right? You know what it's like to be there. You know what? It's pretty cool.
Yeah.
It's just a great event, you know, and you know, it's just a great time to get people back. You know, our kids are playing now, so it makes it fun.
Yeah, it is fun, and so when I moved back to town, I got on when I was in college, I was back on the committee in '98, '99, and then stayed on it too. So it's fun to organize it. It's fun to be around everybody. I don't play that much anymore, but help organize it. But the best part was when not only the players come back, but now some of their parents come. Like their parents continue to come back, and you know, we started the alumni soccer in '08, just on the same model as the alumni basketball. It's the same thing. You know, get people back. It's not a fundraiser, but it's just to get people around. And that's what keeps SCOTUS going. That's what's so special about it.
Yeah, I agree. And it's I mean, the thing has evolved from the '80s, you know, and it's kind of crazy because, and don't hammer me for this, but I always felt like SCOTUS had good basketball teams. And in the last probably 15 years, we've had some really, really good teams. We've had good teams. We're not the Wahoos of the world to have 14 state championships or whatever, but it's still the pride to come back and play basketball. And, you know, you can play for a long time. You know, all 3 of my kids play. I don't know, it's probably about 8 years ago, something like that. We now have a Saturday afternoon girls game, which is really fun.
That is fun to watch.
We get all ages. We just kind of divide them up, and it's competitive.
It is very competitive.
It's very competitive, and it's crazy to see how many parents come to watch those girls play.
Yes.
It's really cool. So I got nieces playing and nephews, and so it's really been a lot of fun. And I don't know how much longer I can play, but I'm going to give it another whirl one more year anyway. So.
That girls' game is fun. And that continues to grow. You know, Chrissy plays in that, but it's fun to, as you're watching them, you know, got girls diving on the floor.
Oh yeah,
those girls are competitive. And that's been instilled in them.
And they still can shoot the ball pretty good.
Yeah. Well, As a Scotus alum, then let me ask you this. What makes you most proud of Scotus?
Oh, that's a tough question. Not tough. How do you limit it to a few things? But, I really think what makes me the most proud is given the opportunity to come to this institution and a faith-based education and learn more about our faith, which is instilled into us too. It's great that my wife was here too, so we share that together along with our kids. But a great education system also, right? Mm-hmm. So not only me, my family, my kids that have come out of this institution are all very, very successful in their careers too. And I think we owe a lot of that to SCOTUS.
Absolutely.
With my kids being in Omaha, and my brother Doug lives in Omaha, and we see this at our Duren Nation tailgates, but it's amazing the number of people that live in Omaha that are SCOTUS people and how successful they are. Mm-hmm. And it boils down to what we learned and how they treated us here, and how we treat people.
Yeah.
So I'm just proud to be a grad.
Yeah.
And to be able to give back.
Yeah. Well, let's do just a quick word association with some former coaches and teammates and friends of yours. I think this is somebody that maybe is forgotten a lot about. Not forgotten a lot, but just maybe especially to this newer generation. But Father Wayne Pavella.
Oh yeah. Father Wayne was he was the resident priest at that time, and he also helped with the athletics. So I guess I would say spiritual leader, friend, really. Yeah. I mean, he was a guy that really continues to be a friend of mine.
Yeah, and he is around the area, so it's always nice to see him. He does some masses at Bonds.
Yeah.
And he was the boys soccer coach that helped got soccer into school, and so he pops up every now and then.
Yeah,
it's always good to get a text from him.
Yeah, great story about Father Wayne. When Lisa and I decided to get married, we did our instructions with Father Wayne. So he was the priest, and how that works then was great. But at our wedding, he told us at his sermon, his first time he ever wore his original vestment. So we've had a great relationship through the years. Just a great person.
Yeah, that's pretty special. What about Steve Bonk?
Steve Bonk, one word, tackler.
Yeah.
Mean.
He was a mean man.
He was a mean man. He played linebacker on our football team, and he was a good basketball player too. Just tough.
Yeah. Jeff Lassick.
Number 27. He was shifty. Mm-hmm. Shifty. He's my best friend, and we were best men in our weddings. And I'm actually going to see him tonight. He lives in Colorado. So.
Oh, neat.
Great friend.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Pat Engelbert.
Pat Engelbert, key underclassman. We're still friends. We went to college together. We're both civil engineers. I like to say he got through school because he used my files, but I don't know if that's the case. But just a key player.
Yeah.
He stepped in as a sophomore and really, really played great.
Yeah. He's like a big teddy bear.
He's a big teddy bear. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. We have some nicknames for each other.
Yeah. Doug Duren.
Doug Duren. Doug's my brother. He's really the guy I looked up to when it came to athletics, especially football. He played quarterback in the 80s. He always talks about my son actually played quarterback here at Scotus too, and so we always talk about. We all were 16. That was a big deal. It seems like it, but I just say he's part of the quarterback club. Just the guy that I looked up to when it came to athletics. My older brother Dennis was the guy I looked up to when it came to education. He's a civil engineer, retired from the Navy, and just great brothers, great brothers.
Brett Kumpf.
Brett Kumpf is smooth. I don't
know
if
this day.
If you ever see him play basketball, he looks like he's in slow motion, but he has these long arms. He's a great shooter. I just remember growing up, going to the games, and I'm like, gosh, everybody wanted to be like Brett. It came down. He had ice. He had ice in his veins, right? I mean, it came down to 2 free throws, and you just knew he was going to make them.
Say something about Mike Chalaha.
Yeah, that's tough. That's a tough one. Mike is missed. He's missed. Mike was my brother-in-law, Lisa's brother. Passed away a couple years ago in 2022. Was one of my best friends. I actually talked to him on a regular basis, almost daily. And we ran this tournament together, and sometimes we argued a little bit, but he was a great friend. He was my hunting buddy. In my opinion, he's the most valuable athletic alumni that came out of Scotus. And we've had some great ones. Don't get me wrong, Bill Cush and Joe Blaha, and if you look at the old days, but and Mike gave back. He gave back. He was he reffed every one of our kids. He reffed anybody that's listening. They probably ref their kids or ref them in basketball, volleyball, whatever. He was always there. I think on our we did a koozie in recognition. I think it said he was the guy that was always there.
Yes,
he was always there to help and and coach. He wanted to kind of coach your kids up. He wasn't really the coach,
yeah.
But on the sidelines or in the family stuff, he'd pull the kids along and just there for support.
Yeah.
Great guy.
He is missed. His brother Darren's my uncle,
Yeah.
married to my aunt. But Mike, I always say, Mike was just very, very passionate.
Oh, yeah.
Very passionate. And
Oh,
you
yeah.
mentioned it. I just remember when one of our alumni basketball meetings, you guys all had a pretty passionate discussion.
Oh, yeah.
Remember that one? One of
Yeah.
you left.
Yeah, I think we did.
Yeah.
I think I might have called him the next day and said, I think you owe me an apology.
Yeah, I remember that.
And he did.
I remember that.
But that's the kind of relationship we had a great relationship.
Yeah.
He's missed by so many here at Scotus,
he is.
and by our family. It's just he was a staple.
Mm-hmm.
He was a staple.
That's a great way to put it.
Yeah.
Well, we're just going to wrap up here. How would you describe Scotus Central Catholic in one word?
Awesome. I always use this. I just love the fact that it's a faith-based education.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's so important because it's so important to get that base, especially when you go off to college or do what you're going to do next, because sometimes it's hard to keep that.
Mm-hmm.
And if you find the right partner, the right spouse, whatever, that can make a big difference. And so it's just bring that on.
Yeah.
Keep it going.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a great way to finish. Well, Todd, I thank you for your time and coming in today. It was fun to chat, learn more about your journey as a Shamrock. I tell people you truly embody what it means to bleed green. So thank you for your many years of service and support to Scotus Central Catholic.
Thanks, John. I really appreciate it. It was a great time.
Yeah.
It's a great time.
Well, if you're interested in hearing more about Shamrock Green Room episodes, subscribe to us and rate us on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. Make sure to follow us on our social media channels, Scotus Central Catholic on Facebook, X, and YouTube, and Columbus Catholic Schools on Instagram. If you have some ideas for some guests on the podcast, please email me at coachbrez@gmail.com. Thank you again for joining us in the Shamrock Green Room.